From the proposed extension of 526 to the Ashley Hall plantation to infrastructure and flooding in his district, I sat down exclusively with incumbent and current Charleston City Councilman Bill Moody for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Bill Moody, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin. Always a pleasure being with you. It was always a lot of fun and challenging questions, and it's a way to educate our community, so I'm always glad to do it.
And that's what I try to do. I was trying to do the same thing with Sandy Sin, but she got mad at me.
Oh, well, maybe it's the questions you ask.
But obviously, you are, as many people believe, are in a political fight for your political life.
Well, I don't see it that way. I have been engaged in this community since I moved to West Ashley in 1968. I've been president of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been president of the Low Country Red Cross. I've been president of the Trident United Way. I've led a lot of efforts in this area, and that's just part of who Bill Moody is and who the Moody family is. And so, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to get elected. My opponent has got some money. He's well funded, and so my consultant tells me there's only two ways to run for a political office. One is unopposed, and the other one is scared. So I'm running scared since I have opposition.
You say he has a lot of money. Does he have a lot of facts right?
Facts or money? Well, he's got a lot of money. He doesn't have many facts.
Can you lay out the facts here?
Well, there's one major issue, and I've been at this completing 526 since it was started. I was part of the Chamber's effort to raise the first half-cent sales tax. I was part of the Chamber's effort to raise the second half-cent sales tax. And this was all about roads. And one of the main roads was 526. And the community voted the first half-cent to put, basically, I think it was $115 million for our share of the deal. And we put that $115 million in it, and they built it over in Mount Pleasant, the Alapalm connector and everything. And so when it came time for the West Ashley to be completed, the answer kind of said, well, let's don't do that section. And that's just wrong. And so I've been fighting to complete 526 from day one. My opponent says he's for I-526, but he filed a suit in June of 2019, just a few months ago, on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League and others, to stop it. And that's exactly what's been going on all these years, and that's why the cost is going up and up and up, is because of the delay. We have now finally gotten this completion to the point that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're ready to move forward. County Council is moving forward on that. You know, and my opponent says, well, City Council doesn't get to vote on this. This is not something we get to vote on. But he technically he's correct, but theoretically he's absolutely wrong, because this extension is all within the city of Charleston. And if we allow this Livability PAC and others like my opponent and the Dana Beach to be successful on putting people on City Council, and that group is opposing every single West Ashley councilman that's up for election right now, except for one. If they win that race, if they win any of those races and start saying, no, we don't want this, we don't want it, it could stop it. So even though we don't get to vote, we have to be proponents. It's part of the West Ashley situation. I mean, we've got to have good schools over there if we're going to redevelop it. We've got to have infrastructure over there, and this is a vital piece of infrastructure. Even though I don't get to vote on it, I do get to go to Columbia. I've been to Columbia several times to lobby the CIB, to lobby our legislative delegation, to talk with the governor. We finally got a governor that's 100% behind this. Our county councilman, I've dealt with county council my whole career. I know those men and women over there. I can have a conversation with them. And so we've got to stay at this. We can't take our foot off the pedal, because there are forces out there that don't want this. And 75% of the people West Ashley and in the county want this completed. And I could go into a whole bunch of reasons why, but I'll just stop there unless you have more questions.
Where is the infrastructure?
Where is it?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, if you want to talk about 526, that's just one piece of it. We've got other roads that we've got to fix.
Okay.
And according to what the county council tells me, that we'll have money to do some of those too, if not all of them. But you know, we got to fix Main Road, the flyover down there. We got to fix Maybank Highway. We got to get that and those pitchforks built. We're building that infrastructure within the city with the county's help. So those are just bits and pieces of it. But looking strictly at my district in West Ashley, even if you fix Main Road and you fix Maybank and the pitchforks, all those people still got to come over to Savannah Highway. And that's gridlock over there. So if you're happy with gridlock, you know, my opponent's the guy to vote for. If you want some solutions, some real solutions to real problems, I think I'm the person to lead that charge. I've done it all my life.
What solutions do you have now for your district?
Well, it depends on which problem you want to talk about.
It's a lot.
And it's different. It's different in my district than, say, it is out in Church Creek. I'm working with people out there to get that. We've got some real problems over on Johns Island with flooding. We've got problems downtown with flooding. But in my district, the good news there is the flooding is not as bad, or we have done some things except for the old Windermere. And I have secured $500,000 in funds to get a new outfall for that area back there along the Greenway, and $4 million has been set aside to kind of redo the whole flooding problem in Windermere. So that'll be done, you know, this year, 2020 and 21. That should be complete. We've got some items or areas over in the Crescent that have specific problems. We're working on that solution. Burns Downs, we have, you know, we just got the outfall cleaned out over there. We got the St. Teresa little basin there that floods all the time. That's now been tied into the Burns Down. We got that sidewalk down the Burns Down side of that we got to do something that's a mess too. So you go down and there's specific, we had a problem with drainage on Pebble Road in that area right there. With the fire station being built, we've got a retention pond to hold some of that water. So we're trying to redivert that water that's coming there, that storm water, to go to the Stono River. Right now it goes under 17 into the Citadel Mall Basin, down by Costco and out the back into the Stono River. So why not just take it directly and give some relief over there? So we've got some problems that are not really expensive, but we're working on them. So infrastructure, that would be one thing. Traffic is a problem. 526 will take a lot of that vehicular, that'll take 30,000 cars a day off of Savannah Highway. That'll create a lot of capacity. We need, I've proposed, well, for example, the new Fire Station 11 and the memorial there, we're going to underground that wiring. I want the people to see what it looks like when your wiring is underground. Sure. I asked for $500,000, which is actually set aside to work with the automobile dealers to underground the wiring there, to beautify that area, to show the people exactly how this, and what that really will do is we'll get all those poles out of the sidewalks. It'll create capacity there. You've got a strip of grass. If we pave that area there, put the wiring underground, that'll make a nice bike ped way, and also create an area for buses to pull over in turn lanes, so that the traffic can flow more freely without having to redo the whole street. So we've got the county's working on infrastructure to the crosswalks like at Wapu, and to, you know, get more lanes there, turn lanes, so the traffic can get out. And that's just a little bit about the traffic. Another infrastructure is the whole Citadel Mall area. Mr. Waring and myself were instrumental in the original idea of putting a TIF in that area all the way to Northbridge. That is now in place. That was put in place about 3 years ago. So that's there. Had been working on that, getting the school to buy in, which we again lobbied the district for. We had a school, an old school, Stone Oak Park Elementary Street on Garden Street there. That was a school that was built, I think, in the 50s. I mean, it was the school district was going to give us $6 million to renovate it. $6 million wouldn't even upgrade the air conditioning. Group of citizens, and I was part of that group, went to the school board and said, we want a new school. $26 million. We got a brand new school in that community that opened this past August. Very proud of that. So again, as a community, West Ashley needs to solve a bunch of problems. 526 is one, schools are one, our business community is one, and drainage is another. And if you want to get into drainage, I can go down that road too, but that's another piece of the infrastructure.
How much money do we have for drainage improvements in your district?
Well, the only thing I know of right now is that's for sure in the capital projects budget is the $4.5 million for Old Windermere.
Okay.
We've got some other stuff that's being done. We've got to work on over in the Crescent area there. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how much that's going to cost, but it's not a multi-million-dollar project. Okay. It's really, and let me just talk a little bit about flooding and stormwater. We have some major problems downtown, the Calhoun West, the Church Creek, Johns Island. Those are going to take some big amounts of money. But my statement, the statement I always make is no home or business should flood because pipes are too small, pipes and ditches have not been cleaned out, and outfalls are not clear. And that's probably about 70 or 75% of our problem in this city. Ditches are not being cleaned out, pipes are not being cleaned out, the tunnel down the middle of the peninsula is collapsed, the whole infrastructure down, it's not Berry Street, I'm not sure what street it is that runs there. I mean, that whole drainage system is collapsed. We need to fix that kind of stuff. We don't need millions and millions of dollars to do that. If we do some of those things, we will solve a lot of our homes flooding. And then, yeah, we have to attack Calhoun West, we've got to attack Church Creek, we got to attack Johns Island. Those are going to be much larger projects. We're going to have more federal and state money. We can't do it on our own, but we've got to start getting grants on that stuff, and we're not doing that. But the maintenance budget for that localized flooding, ditches and pipes and that stuff has got to be increased.
How many ditches do you need cleaned in your district right now?
Geez, all of them. How many do we have? And let me just tell you, here's some of the problems. And I ran into it, actually, there's a ditch that runs right beside my house, okay? And my neighbor and my property line are right together, okay? And this drains part of the Harrison Acre into the outfall. Well, that ditch stays full of water all the time. And because there's, in effect, a dam at the end of that where all the debris has come down. So that's part of the problem. You got to get those outfalls clear so the water can run out, number one. Number two, the ditches fill up with dirt and, stuff like that. So I called the city and I said, this looks to me like a problem because this ditch is full and the water now is kind of running across my property down at the end. And so the word came back, well, we don't have a right-of-way on that ditch. So we got a property line and we got a ditch that kind of weaves down the thing. So I went to my neighbor and I said, look, we need to grant the city an easement so they can put equipment in this ditch to clean it out. And so he and I had the city prepared the documents to grant an easement. Well, the city it's been over a year, they haven't come clean the ditch out yet, but at least they have the right to do that. Sure. And that's all over the place. So if we hadn't granted that easement, and the water was backing up into my neighbor's house. If I wouldn't give them that easement, we couldn't get a solution. And that, the Crescent is one of those things where they put the ditches in when they first built it,
Right.
but they didn't get an easement. So the city doesn't have the right to go back there and clean that ditch out. And over the years, those ditches have just filled up. And so it's all over like that.
All over, okay. Let me get back to those federal projects that you were talking about in regards to Johns Island and whatnot. How much money would you propose?
Well, the number that's been thrown out is $2 billion dollars. That we've got, low battery
Yes.
and the Septima Clark
Right.
and the Calhoun West,
Right.
Church Creek. I mean, $2 billion. I have no idea whether that number is right, wrong, or indifferent. And so I know it's a lot of money, and I know that that's not any money that we have around the city. So we've got to go get federal money, FEMA money, wherever it can come from, to do that. So we got to have a good grant writer that can go look for that. And this is a multi-year project. And this is not something, even the low battery, if we get the money from the SIB on that, it'll take us a couple years to get that done. I mean, we've already started on it, but it'll take several years to get that low battery built up.
Let me get back to 526. What's the information out there right now that is incorrect that you want to set the record straight?
Well, I think that people argue that if you build 526, extend it over to Johns Island on into James Island, you're going to cause development. Okay, to me that is a completely false narrative, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the state of South Carolina, we have I-26. That goes across the state, and then we have 95 that goes north to south.
Right.
And right there in that kind of left bottom quadrant where those two interstates is the town of St. George. And when I was involved in development with the Charleston Regional Development Alliance, the Chamber, and those people up there were saying, why can't you bring factories and businesses and help us develop this? And it's a very simple answer. St. George has well water and they have septic tanks. As long as you have well water and septic tanks, you cannot develop, okay? And I've told people in St. George, if you want to develop up there, you need to get water and sewer. Now, take that to Johns Island. What does Johns Island have? The Johns Island, the largest island on the eastern seaboard, I think maybe other than maybe Long Island up in New York, but they're one or two, okay? We've got an urban growth boundary line. Outside of the urban growth boundary line is well water and septic tanks. Inside that urban growth boundary line, which most of that's in the city right now, it already has water and sewer. So that property is going to develop. Well, no matter what you and I want, those property owners have already got the water and the sewer they need to develop that property. So the question is, when are you going to build 526, not if you're going to build 526. That horse has already left the barn as far as developing Johns Island. If you want to stop development on Johns Island, you got to go out there and pull up that water line and that sewer line. So, they say it's just going to develop. It's going to develop anyway. Now, outside the urban growth boundary line, we've been very, very strong on that. That's not good. We don't want any water and sewer out there. We don't want any zoning out there. But some of this development is going to have to be controlled through zoning, and that's going to be a tough conversation as to how we just do all that. And that's all over not just on Johns Island or James Island. That's the whole city.
And let me take you to the islands again, because I know this was a big topic last week, and this is from Channel 2. Hundreds of Watermore residents packed in the Charleston County Council meeting room. Almost 70 people signed up for public comment. The meeting was called after the council had received a sizable amount of comments from the community towards a rezoning application. Residents sent in letters and signed an online petition before tonight's meeting. The applicants, Seth and Tori Bolt, own a 30-acre luxury treehouse rental property called Bolt Farms. After receiving backlash from the community, they decided to withdraw their application. When you look at that, what do you say?
Well, look, everybody has a right to develop. All right, and that's what they want. Those are some really good people. I mean, they're really fine people. But they want to basically put a short-term rental operation in a residential area, and that's what the zoning is, to allow them to have a short-term rental. I fought short-term rentals in neighborhoods when it was brought up. The downtown community said, y'all can put them West Ash if you want to, but we don't want them downtown, except the Canterbury-Allibur, which is in the commercial area down there, and allowed that. I said, I don't want them in my neighborhood either. The problem with short-term rentals are that they destroy the character of the neighborhood. All of a sudden you have a business operation, people coming and going all the time, living in that neighborhood. It causes the prices to go up because of the income that comes off of those, as opposed to a long-term rental. And so all of a sudden you got a false financial situation there, where values are going up, people can't afford to live there, and you're destroying the character of you got people moving in and out of the house next door, you got small kids or whatever, you don't know who those people are, and so it destroys the character. And I have been opposed to short-term rentals in neighborhoods from day one. I think there's a place for them. For example, on Savannah Highway in my district, right on the corner of Stocker Drive, there's a guest house there. That might be a perfect place for a short-term rental, because it used to be one. And so there may be some places like that where we could, but not back in the single-family neighborhoods. That's not the appropriate place. So, since you brought it up, I would just tell you that my opponent, two things. Number one, my opponent wanted went to county council to get property in Edgewater Park, which a little bit of that's in my district, most of it's still in the county, but this particular property was in the county. So he went to the county to get that piece of property rezoned so they could have a short-term rental in the middle of Edgewater Park. Those people didn't like it, and I think they withdrew that. Then the one you're talking about on Wadmalaw Island, he wrote a letter to county council saying that he's this zoning guru, but he's not representing these people as an attorney. He's writing this letter as their friend. And so as their friend, he said short-term rentals are just, they're not all that bad, they're pretty good, and you ought to allow this. Well, as soon as these people you're talking about brought that up, he wrote another letter to county council saying he wanted his name removed from all public exposure on that. So he canceled his friendship in order to gain a political advantage.
What political advantage is he going to get from this?
Well, that's what he does. I mean, he's an attorney. He's a good attorney. He's a good zoning attorney. Actually, I voted for him to put him on our Board of Zoning Appeals. But the problem is his clients are not so supportive of our residential communities. He supported the Myrtle Beach developer. He was the attorney for the Myrtle Beach developer, wanted to put all that high density housing over on Ashley Hall Plantation Road. I think that's been changed now. They're developing that, but instead of 65, they're down to like 40 units. I mean, it's got down so it's just like it was cluster housing. That was completely different from everything that's over there. He did the Edgewater Park zoning. He did the Wadmalaw zoning. He also is the attorney for Vince Graham, who was the most anti-526 guy around, to put the hotel in the village in downtown Mount Pleasant. The people over there are irate about that. So this is my opponent. This is what he does for a living, and he's pretty good at it. He just doesn't need to be on city council.
And when you look back at, let me go back to the Wadmalaw area. What is the typical income over there?
High. Well, it's mixed. I mean, to be honest with you, there's a large African American community over there. Sure. That they've been over there forever. Right. And they need to be protected. I mean, there's a lot of heirs property over there and stuff like that. And if you're not careful, you'll force those people out, because somebody, a developer, will come in and buy that property up, and that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. But most of the property over there, there's a few people that own large tracts of property.
Sure.
And so, and they want to keep it rural. And I mean, it's not in the city, but I think the county folks, I mean, I think they're listening to them.
And you said that he really shouldn't be on council, although he's a good zoning attorney in your mind. Why should you go back on council for 4 more years?
All right. Well, sometimes I ask that question myself. Why do I want to do this? You know, I have lived West Ashley since 1968. My wife and I moved over there. We had 3 children. Those 3 kids grew up over there, going to public schools. They didn't go to private schools. They went to St. Andrews Elementary, Wallace Middle, Middleton, Springfield Elementary. I mean, they went to public schools over there. And they loved that area too. And those 3 kids, they grew up. My son Brian got as far north as Maryland.
Right.
My daughter got as far up west as San Antonio. My youngest son got as far west as Atlanta. All 3 of those kids, at some point, right after they got out of college and started their career, said, we want to move back to Charleston. And that was a dream come true for me and my wife, because they came back, they married, and we have 7 grandchildren. All 7 of those grandchildren grew up West Ashley, going to John Wesley United Methodist Church, going to school, being a part of the community. So my philosophy has always been that you need to leave something better than when you found it. And part of me says you got to give back. My oldest son, was on the school board for 12 years.
I remember that.
Okay. My youngest son is on county council.
Right.
My daughter is involved in all kinds of activity with the schools and stuff like that. So we've been a family of trying to make things better. And quite frankly, you know, I retired 10 years ago. I've been on city council for 8 years. I think I've been engaged very much. I mean, I think that's somewhat maybe why I'm being attacked now, is because I've been too effective in looking out for West Ashley, getting the things that we need. And look, downtown Charleston is the goose that laid the golden egg. We got to protect that goose. But you can't just take everything downtown. You got to look out. The majority of the people live West Ashley, and that's what I've been fighting for. When you think about the hospitality tax, the accommodations tax, we have collected, I think the number is $338 million. It's something over $300 million since inception. $5 million has come West Ashley. That's all. And so we have been fighting, and it's not that it's taken stuff from downtown, but a lot of that tax is generated in West Ashley, and the hotels and the food over there.
Right.
So we just want our share of that pie. And what we've been able to do with it, we bought WPL Park.
Right.
We've gone out for an RFQ to develop that. That's come out of hospitality. The Greenway and the Bikeway, we're getting ready to pave the last strip of that.
Right.
That's been a fight to get that.
Money-wise?
I'm sorry?
Money-wise?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, and that really has to do more with the state. That's an interesting thing. But you got to stay engaged in all this stuff. So we got Higgins Pier has been completed. Northbridge's been completed. Bender Street's going to be a beautiful park right there in the Maryville, Ashleyville area. When I first saw that piece of property, Mr. Waring took me over there. We walked out the end of the street there and looked, and there was the Adventure ship sitting right there in the marsh. And I looked at that and I said, Keith, if you go and get on that ship and look back towards the city,
right,
if we don't protect this property, you'll see condominiums. I want that to look like it did in 1670 when those settlers first came. That you look and you see the marsh and the trees, and not a condominium project right in front of that. So we bought that property. So those are, you know, we just in my district, Fort Pemberton.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if most people don't even know Fort Pemberton over on James Island. It's a 9-acre piece of tract. We paid about $6 million using Greenbelt money to preserve that. The developer was going to come in and build condominiums and houses on that 9 acres. That would have been a travesty if we had let that happen. So it's going to take us a while to get the money to develop that, but we've got the land. We own the property, so we can secure that for the future. So you know, the same way with the underground wiring, we got to keep trying to do those type of things. So why am I serving? I love working on projects like that. Every Tuesday I have it's called Coffee Talk at Wildfire Cafe.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have 10, 15, maybe 20 people come every Tuesday morning and have coffee, bring their issues. You know, let me talk about them, let me discuss them, keeps me informed as to what's going on in the district and the West Ashley. And I just enjoy public service. I always have. I've always been engaged, and you know, my health is good. My age is getting up there, but my health is still good. I can get around pretty good, and so I enjoy doing that. So it's pretty much a full-time job for me, but you know, that's fine. I enjoy doing it. When it's no longer fun, then I'll step back.
Bill Moody, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Always a pleasure, Quintin. Thanks so much.
Thank you.